Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. We are in the preseason of 2022. In our first episode, we just took a look at the roster, had shared our initial thoughts on what we might look to do this year, and now we are going to start executing on that plan. You can see we don't have a ton of money for free agents. As I mentioned in our first episode, we want to open up a lot more money for the development budget and certainly some more money for the scouting budget. So the only way that we're going to be able to do that is to get rid of some salary. And the obvious way for us to do that, in my opinion, is to see if we can get anything for Carlos Santana. These Royals are, I believe, fairly unlikely to compete this year, and a soon-to-be 36-year-old first baseman, although he has had great power and a very good eye over the course of his career, is a luxury that I just don't think we can afford. So we are going to be looking to shop him. The other thing that we are going to look to do is we're going to lower our ticket prices reasonably significantly, down to $18 from $21.50. So that's a 16% decrease. Just want to see if we can really drive more significant attendance and more significant season tickets than we had last year. The other thing that we intend to do in this episode, if we are able to trade Santana, is to revamp our coaching staff somewhat. Right now we've got a few potential issues with a lot of coaches who struggle with personable people, and unfortunately our manager Mike Matheny is personable. I tend to think we probably are going to stick with Matheny and maybe make some changes to his coaching staff, and then also going to do a deep dive on what our minor league system looks like and clean up, hopefully, anyone who's not all that effective, and then obviously fill the 3 vacancies that we have in the gold team in the ACL League. So we are going to shop Carlos Santana. Right now, just looking if we can even get a single player for him without retaining any salary. I'm not sure how that's going to turn out. Yeah, not much there. No one offers anything for him, so we're going to have to at least start discussions by keeping a chunk of his salary. We'll put it up to 60%. Our hope is to not have to retain that much of it eventually. If we have to add in more players, that will be what we do, but at least want to get an idea of what's potentially out there, and still not a ton, unfortunately. Alex Bohm from Philadelphia and then Dylan Moore from Seattle are the only two out there to maybe build things around. Certainly doesn't seem like we need a third baseman now with Bobby Witt Jr. Bohm is 6'5", though, and he's got potential to play first base. Not great defensively and looks like a very average hitting profile. Still not a horrible prospect, though. Dylan Moore, extremely versatile defensively, heading into his arbitration years, but not going to be making a ton of money. Good utility player, it looks like, but I think that I'm probably going to try to build it around Alex Bohm, and maybe he becomes our first baseman or kind of a backup utility infielder for us. Any potential? Not even really a ton of potential for him to play in the outfield. Even at left field, he wouldn't be all that exciting. So let's see if we can build something to hopefully get more of Santana's salary off and hopefully not have to give up too much. And we have pieced together a deal that will allow us to get rid of Santana and not retain any salary. So it'll improve our financial position by close to $10 million, which would be huge. It's a 5-for-1 trade, though. We're giving up a lot of players. No one who really stands out to me, though. Noah Murdoch that control is always going to be an issue to me. He's already 23 years old, only been in high A ball. So, they're basically just looking for a bunch of lottery tickets on the starting pitchers. Samuel Valerio, similar situation, just really, really poor control, at least according to our scouts. Luis Cepeda, more of a mixed profile, but 21 years old, never been above rookie ball. And then catcher Luca Tresh, not very good defensively. Doesn't seem like he's going to be much of a hitter. So, Murdoch and Valerio maybe have a little bit of potential to develop into the end of the bullpen type of arm at the major league level. But the point of this is really just to clear that salary of Santana and give us the opportunity to invest more in the minor leaguers, in player development, in the draft and scouting going forward. The fact that we're getting Bohm back is not the worst thing in the world. A young player who's under our control. Guess the Phillies maybe weren't really as understanding of his comments from a couple of weeks ago about the fans and playing in Philadelphia, so maybe they want to ship him off for that reason. But although our assistant GM doesn't like the trade at this point with the amount of players that we've added in, we are going to pull the trigger and open up some money for us to use for other things with this Royals franchise. And now we've got some money to spend with over $12 million available. Not going to be spending it on free agents, though. As I mentioned, want to improve our scouting and development budget. But before we even get to that point, we're going to take a deep dive through the personnel and probably fire a fair amount of people and hopefully replace them with coaches throughout both the major leagues and our farm system who will, in our view, hopefully do a better job of developing talent in the Royals organization for the next several years. And just taking a top-down look at the major league organization, obviously Matheny with his $1.1 million contract for 5 seasons, and then Lonnie Goldberg making over $700,000 a year for the next 3 seasons would be the most difficult to let go from a financial perspective. But Matheny is a pretty good manager. Excellent with development, good with mechanics, gets along decently with the team, does seem to have some problems with the pitchers, but really good with all of the position players, handles aging excellent, and he kind of lets us control the coaching, or the hiring of the coaches, which is something that I prefer when I'm in GM mode. So I think Matheny can potentially stay. Pedro Griffel, the bench coach, though, only thing he's got going for him is good relationships with the team, which is not unimportant, but he's only decent with development and mechanics, and he's not really good at teaching any type of defense. He's outstanding at teaching running, but doesn't bring a ton to the table, and he also struggles with Matheny from a personality perspective. I think we can probably do better at our bench coach, so we are going to say goodbye to Mr. Griffel. Cal Eldred, pitching coach, excellent at teaching pitching, good with development and mechanics, focus on power pitchers. Has really good relationships overall, particularly with a lot of the pitchers. Only fair with the catchers, which probably isn't optimal, but he can potentially stick around at least through the first round of these cuts. Hitting coach Terry Bradshaw, though, probably has to go. He's got good relationships, which is something, but only decent at teaching hitting. I think we'd want somebody better than that. I know we'd want somebody better than that, so we are going to get rid of Terry Bradshaw also. He can go back to covering football for the Fox network as far as we're concerned. Damon Hollins, first base coach, has to go. Poor at in-game running and not really great at teaching any of the skills that we need our coaches to be teaching, so Damon Hollins going to be gone also. Vance Wilson, third base coach, Similar situation, only fair at in-game running. He's good at catching defense, but just not really good at teaching any of the other things that we'd like our first base and third base coach and bench coach to be working on. We really kind of need to upgrade that staff, so he's going to get fired also. Lonnie Goldberg at scouting director. He's certainly going to make it through the first cut. We'll see if personality-wise with the rest of the players we bring on, whether it's a problem or not, but he's good at major, minor, and international, excellent at amateurs, highly favors tools. Not the perfect scout, but probably good enough that we consider keeping him around. And then Nick Kenny, pretty good profile also. Would hope that he was better at preventing back and other injuries, but excellent at fatigue recovery, excellent at preventing arm, outstanding at preventing leg. He's not going to get fired right away. We're going to at least give it some thought and see what the revamped staff looks like in terms of cohesion, and then also how much money we have, given that we've taken our money for free agents down a bit already with the buyouts of all of those contracts. So going to spend a little more time digging in. I'm going to see if we maybe have anyone in our minor league system who we can move up to any of these roles at the major league level. And then we'll also be searching through the free agents out there to see how we can rebuild this coaching staff for the Royals. Kind of looking through the trainers who are available just to see whether we should consider about upgrading from Lonnie Goldberg. And I think we're going to stand pat. If we wanted to upgrade something, it would be someone who was a better international scout than Goldberg, who's only good with international. There's only one highly favored tools scout out there who meets that criteria, R.J. Harrison. You can see he's good with the majors, and then he's excellent with the minors, international, and amateurs. The issue is that he's 68 years old. We very well could sign him and he could retire after next season, and we'd also have to pay out several years if we fire Goldberg now, so I don't think that makes sense to do. So I think we are going to stand pat there, but I do have one interesting hire that we've come up with. And it will hopefully be a fitting hire for the Royals, but we are looking to bring on Bo Jackson as our first base coach. Excellent at in-game running, legendary with catching and infield defense, and good with outfield defense and running. His personality is controlling, the only one that we have on our team. That's a little bit of a problem with our pitching coach, Cal Eldred, I believe, but Bo works well with personable people, and we've got a lot of personable people on the staff right now. And it's an opportunity to bring Bo Jackson back to the Royals at the age of 59. So we are definitely going to offer Bo a contract as our first base coach, looking for $265,000. Let's see if we can sign him for about $225,000 a year for 5 years. We'll submit that offer to Bo Jackson, and hopefully he will be our new first base coach. And I think we may have found our new bench coach, Byron Nichols. Excellent with handling development, excellent with handling influencing mechanics, good at teaching defense in all three categories, and excellent at teaching running, so certainly can help from that perspective. Is expected to have good relationships overall with the Royals players, particularly the everyday players, a little more mixed with the pitchers. And his normal personality is... that's the only potential issue. Matheny's going to have a little bit of a problem with that, but Nichols works well with personable people, which is most everyone on the team, and he struggles with easygoing people. We don't have any of those. So potentially a tiny bit of a conflict between Matheny and Nichols, which isn't optimal, but I think with everything else that Nichols brings to the plate, so to speak, he's potentially the best option out there. We're going to do a little more digging, but I think that at this point we're leaning towards bringing on Byron Nichols as our bench coach. Yeah, we've done a little more looking, and we're going to go ahead and make an offer to Nichols. A little bit of a conflict maybe with him and Matheny, but I think in the context of the rest of the staff we're putting together, should be fine. Looking for $600,000 a year as a bench coach. Going to be expensive. Let's see if we can get him for $475,000 if we give him 5 years. He may not go for that, but going to be an expensive addition for the Royals if we're able to bring him on board. We'll see what happens. Looking at our new hitting coach, had several great options out there. Joey DeMonte, who's legendary at teaching hitting, outstanding with development. Ben Johnson, outstanding at teaching hitting, outstanding with development. They're both excellent with mechanics. Going to go with Ben Johnson simply because he's expected to have better relationships with our players. He's going to be expected to have good relationships, whereas DeMonte was only average relationships. So Ben Johnson hopefully will become the new hitting coach for the Royals. Let's see if we can get him for somewhat less, since every dollar matters with the Royals, but we'll make him an offer to be our hitting coach. And I think we've also found our third base coach now, Nick Jackson. Personable personality, which will work well with the team. Only struggles with temperamental people. We don't have any temperamental people. And a really good profile for a base coach. Excellent at in-game running. Legendary at teaching catching. Excellent at teaching infield. And then outstanding at teaching outfield defense and running. Just to make things better, he's expected to have good relationships with the team. So I think that he will be a real good hire for us potentially as our third base coach to build a great coaching staff that gets along pretty well with one another. All right, so we've now got offers outstanding to Ben Johnson, Byron Nichols, Bo Jackson, and Nick Jackson to fill the 4 gaps on our roster or on our coaching staff. So I'm going to dig into fixing our minor league staff, getting rid of any dead weight there right now. Should have plenty of money to do that, since those players or those coaches generally get paid a lot less. Still haven't hired anybody after the fires, so we still got about $10.5 million left. But as we start bringing on some of these more expensive major league coaches and paying them their salaries, that money will get a little bit lower in the coming week or so, hopefully. All right, well, we've spent some time kind of revamping the minor leagues also. You can see we've paid out some contracts down to just a little over $10 million available now. But we have offers for a variety of hitting coaches, pitching coaches, and even managers now out throughout the minor league organization. So it's not perfect yet. We may still have some future changes to make, but want to kind of start building a team across the organization that's going to make and allow our players to develop as quickly and as effectively as possible. Because being a small market team, developing what we've got and turning them into effective major league players while we've got them under control at reasonable contracts is going to be critical to us. So feel that it makes a lot of sense to spend a lot of time at the outset investing in our major league and minor league coaching staffs at this point. And the last thing we're going to do before we start simming ahead a little bit is just see if there are any kind of popular players available as free agents who might be able to contribute, who could kind of give us a little boost in fan interest by bringing them on board. Probably not too much of anything too interesting on the free agent availability right now. Michael Conforto, well known, which would help, but he's looking for almost $10 million. Not an amount that we're going to pay, but we're going to see if maybe we can pick up a popular player or two to kind of round out our major league roster, or even bring in on a minor league contract to potentially give us a little bit of a boost to a local popularity, get the fans excited, and maybe sell a few extra tickets while hopefully most importantly, also helping us on the field. Unfortunately, but not surprisingly, there's really not a ton out there that would be real attractive as far as popular players. Jonathan LaCroix would be the most interesting, but as we've talked about in our previous episode, catcher is kind of one of the only positions of strength, not just at the major league level, but across the Kansas City organization. So don't see a need to bring him on board. I'm going to make a minor league offer to Sandy Leone. Great personality to help in the clubhouse. Could be a good addition to us at the AAA level, and he is popular locally for whatever that's worth. Not sure if he'll go to it or not. Steve Lombardozzi, a similar situation, just a fantastic personality, spark plug, good leadership, adaptability, work ethic, and intelligence. If he's willing to join our minor league system, would be happy to have him on board. And then to make up for the loss of Santana, not really to make up for him, but to give us a little bit of veteran leadership, Cespedes is out there. He's a borderline major league player at best. Fortunately, his only expectation is to be a bench player. He's fragile at this point. If we can bring him on board for a very minimal amount of money, would do that. Don't know if he's even going to make the major league roster, but we'd see whether he can potentially get the fans excited. So he's only looking for a minor league contract with major league options, although he does want it to be worth $1.8 million if he gets it. Let's see if he's willing to do it if it's only $1.5 million contract. Every little bit matters. He wants a bonus if he gets to 550 plate appearances. We'll even make that bonus a little more because there's no way he's going to get to 550 plate appearances. And he'll consider that offer. So, we doesn't seem like there's anything earth moving here. We made offers, minor league contracts for a couple other younger players just to kind of start building out our minor league system a bit with some more talented players, higher potential players, or players with good personalities. So we've kind of done what we hope to do, I think, in this episode in terms of trading away Santana, hopefully beefing up our coaching staff, and then also maybe adding a little bit of players that the locals in Kansas City will get excited about. But as I mentioned, looking at the profile of the players that we're looking at here, there's definitely no game changers unless we wanted to bring Conforto on board, and we just don't want to be spending all of the money that we opened up from Santana on him. And we have decided to make one more change to the coaching staff. We just fired Cal Eldred as the pitching coach. I think he was a fine pitching coach. The issue was just he struggled with personable people, which is basically our entire staff. And we have a great option in the minors in John Habian to bring up, who's excellent at teaching pitching, good at development mechanics, aging, focused on power pitchers, and he also has a personality that will get along well with that personable personality with a lot of people on our team, and he also works well with controlling people, which will go well with Bo Jackson, and he struggles with easygoing, which nobody is, and he's also expected to have good relationships with the Royals by and large. So going to bring up the longtime Oriole pitcher to the major leagues if he is willing to join us as the pitching coach in Kansas City, and he is. And I think that will make us have a much more cohesive staff. You can see we're only content right now, but when you look at the numbers for how many of us work well together compared to just the small amount of struggles we have on our staff now, a lot of good relationships already. And then you look at the coaching, legendary catching and infield coaching, and outstanding outfield and running coaching. I think we've set up a coaching staff that's going to allow us to really maximize the talents of the players that we do have here in Kansas City. So interestingly, although we fired Cal Eldred as our major league pitching coach, we did like his skills, and he was willing to join us as the pitching coach back in our high A team. So glad that he didn't hold any grudges against us, and happy to upgrade our minor league pitching when all is said and done. Obviously, we spent some money to pay him out, so not optimal from a financial perspective, but we couldn't just demote him that far. And waiting to hear from Cespedes, Lombardozzi, and Leone on the minor league contract offers that we've made to each of those players. And we did end up signing Cespedes, Lombardozzi, and Leone to those minor league contracts. Didn't really move the needle, not surprisingly, as far as what our fans are thinking, since they're only minor league deals. But, hopefully they'll be good influences on the organization and maybe help us a little bit at some point down the line. The lowering of ticket prices has definitely helped us sell more season tickets, and we're expected to have higher attendance this year and, most importantly, more revenue per game. So I think that was a potentially good decision. And even after all the coaching moves that we've made, still have some money to spend right now. So we're going to put some of that into our scouting and development budgets, upgrade scouting a little bit to about $12 million for the time being. Hopefully can still go higher there eventually. Development even more important. Want to make sure that we've got at least $16 million there to start moving that in the right direction. We only had $2.5 million as a default in our international amateur free agent budget. Want to make sure that we max that out in case there's an opportunity to add somebody. So that really just about uses all of the money that we have. Could cut down the draft budget a little bit. Only expected to need about $14.2 million. So maybe we'll cut that down to 16 to give us a little more flexibility. And then that will allow us to upgrade both scouting and development another $1 million each. Not where we want to be with those. But at least we're moving in the right direction. The only other big lever we would have would be to potentially really upset the fans and trade away Zack Greinke, who's making $13 million this year and is going to be our best pitcher, but not a long-term answer for us, and would certainly allow us to invest more in our organization by not having him around. But that would be a tough sell to the fan base, I think, and also just a tough sell in terms of the Royals pretending that we're going to be competitive this year. And while we're thinking about our budgets, we're also going to adjust our scouting budget. I'm going to spend the least on major leagues, only 10% there. Can also go less on minor leagues. We want to get to know these areas over time, but not our key focus right now as we try to build up things. So 10% on major leagues, 20 on the minors, 25 on amateur, and 45 on international. Honestly, I'd like to have a little less in minor leagues and a little more in amateur right now, potentially, especially with us having a big pick upcoming in the draft. We're going to be having a top 10 pick. But want to put most of it at this point into international. That's where we can potentially make some scouting discoveries of players with decent potential that we don't have to bid and fight with others about. So want to make sure that we're kind of optimizing that. Hopefully over time we'll get to know all of the major and minor leaguers around the game, but as a team that's focused more on development of our system and finding people for our minor league system right now than necessarily winning in the majors over the next year or two, I think it makes sense to pour more into amateur and international scouting for at least this season. And I did decide for the heck of it just to shop Zack Greinke. No one interested in prospects or regulars for him. If we don't retain any salary, if we bump it up to 50%, very, very minor interest. Chad Pinder and Wanya Pez. Pez doesn't look like a horrible player. First base prospect with some power, 22 homers and 63 ribbies with a .289 batting average last year in AAA. not a horrible player. Could certainly help our team. Issue is we'd love someone who's able to play somewhere other than first base. He'd be a mediocre defensive left fielder, but probably could do that for us if we needed him to in a pinch. I just don't know. Are we really ready to just throw in the towel on this season and trade away Greinke? Definitely got to think about it. I don't hate the idea of bringing on Yepez. I definitely don't love the idea of Greinke costing us $6.5 million for nothing this year, given that he was just signed by the Royals. Ooh, interesting. Was going to see if I could extend him. If I could extend him for another year for a lower amount, then I would think about keeping him around. But he doesn't really even like playing for Mike Matheny. So that's not optimal, that there's some tension there between our best pitcher and our manager. So this is interesting. Greinke has a poor relationship with Matheny, and he's not going to re-sign with us anyways. So now I think we want to probably move on. Typically, I would want to wait until the trade deadline, getting close. I think with a pitcher like him, we could get something more interesting for him at that point. But if we wait until then, our scouting and development budgets are both going to be locked for the year. Whereas if we trade him away now, we're going to get to dump some more money into those budgets to start really building our farm system. Are the Royals going to win the World Series this year with this roster and what we've already done? Absolutely not. Are the Royals going to make the playoffs this year with the team as comprised? It's very unlikely. So we move from very unlikely to make the playoffs to extremely unlikely to make the playoffs if we trade away Greinke. But we're able to put a lot more money into scouting and development and building up this system to be what we need it to be over time. I think I'm going to try to trade him. I don't want to be holding on to half of that contract, though. So my goal is to maybe see if there's somebody else that we can put into a potential deal to sweeten things for other teams, so we don't have to be retaining 50% of it, and we can potentially maybe even get a better prospect out of it. So I'm going to take a look kind of at the team. We've got a lot of excess relievers at the major league level right now. Maybe there's someone there in his mid-20s that someone will have some level of interest in. And since we're thinking about who Matheny doesn't get along with, Drew Parrish would be the obvious one. Bubic is still probably one of the best young starting pitchers we have at the major league level. Not going to dump him, but Drew Parrish, 24-year-old reliever, like that he's a lefty, but he doesn't have much movement at all, and he's a fly ball pitcher without a lot of velocity. I just don't see him being real successful for us, and he already doesn't get along with the manager. Maybe if we can bundle him with Greinke, we can put together a better package from our end. And adding Drew Parrish into the deal didn't move the needle at all. Still got offered Pinder and Yepez, so probably not surprisingly that a average major league reliever isn't going to move the dial much as far as what we're going to get in a potential trade. All right, well, in our interest to save money, we're kind of going in a whole different direction now. Adalberto Mondesi is important infielder for us. Very good defensively. Not great in the clubhouse with leadership, just not much of a hitter. But he's making $3 million this year, likely going to be making $6 million next year with arbitration. And we can trade him to the Cubs for Nico Horner, who's 2 years younger. He's going to be making over $4 million next year in terms of arbitration. So we're saving a little money this year, a little money next year. Horner is not as good defensively, but he's very versatile. Looks like he's got a better bat, and he's going to be a pretty good influence in the clubhouse. I think if we can do something along these lines, we're going to try to get it done. Would like to get a little more out of them for Mondesi, but I think even straight up, it's not a bad deal for us. And it'll open up some money this year, even if we don't end up trading away Greinke, that can help us improve our farm system. And we were able to get $2 million cash in addition to Horner out of the Cubs if we added in closer Adalberto Garcia, who doesn't seem like he's going to really develop into anything. He's 22 years old, only been as high as A-ball. Our scout doesn't think much of him. Presumably the Cubs think a little more of him. But this is a way to make our team slightly younger. We're losing defensively, which isn't great, but getting a little bit better offensively, getting a little more versatility, at least in the field, and also picking up a little cash as well as taking off some payroll. So we're going to go ahead and complete this trade. And you can see between taking off Mondesi's salary and then the cash that we got, open up some more money to invest in our scouting and our development budget. Now we're up to 20 million, which is certainly a level as which we can start really making some progress there. So the last question we kind of have is whether we also want to move on from Greinke or not. Kind of looking at the salary page now, Greinke's a free agent. We know he's not going to re-sign with us because he doesn't like Matheny. Benintendi, I don't think we trade him away. He is still probably one of the second best hitter on our team, most likely behind Perez, assuming that Bobby Witt Jr. doesn't just explode this year. So, we want to put a competitive product out on the field, but I don't think we've hurt ourselves from doing that at this point with the trades that we've made. We're not that much worse. Greinke's going to be the one that would make us worse, but we're not going to re-sign him. We're not going to win this year. I think we want to get rid of him now, where we can put a little bit more money into developing the 150, 200, however many other players we're going to have across our minor league system is more important than getting 1 year at the age of 38 out of Zack. And we're probably going to regret it, but we're going to trade away Greinke. Also, when we put in Drew Parrish into the deal, and then they wanted Steve Lombardozzi, who we just signed to that minor league contract, was going to be a great influence probably in AAA or AA for us, but with that great personality, but clearly not a player who's really a major leaguer at this point. But putting those guys in was able to get down to us only needing to retain 5% of Greinke's contract. Get Yepez, who we will try to turn into a left fielder, I think. You can see with the new projections for fielding ability that they project that he could be a 50 in left field, which is certainly not great, but acceptable, and at least gives him a little more positional versatility. We're not playing for this year. We're playing to build up a minor league system over time. We're going to do it. And obviously that trade opened up a ton of money for us now. Our payroll is now down to 26th in the game, so we're moving in the wrong direction. But definitely lets us move scouting budget up to 16 million, and we're going to move our development budget up to 24 million. Still have $7.5 million that we can potentially spend on other things if need be. Although honestly, I'm starting to think that with a team like ours, we're probably not always going to be able to be in a situation like we were this year, with two of the biggest contracts on the team being either players we didn't want in the case of Santana, or players that we just weren't going to be able to re-sign in the case of Greinke. So we're probably not always going to be able to have a massive development budget like this year. So from that perspective, I'm actually going to bump it up to $28 million. When a team like the Royals can put the money into development, I think we have to do it. Still going to have a little flexibility with $3 million plus as we head closer to the season if we need to go over our draft budget, or if we decide to make a trade down the line and take on a little bit of contract to make the team better. But I don't know. I'd love to hear thoughts down below on whether we were crazy in dumping the most experienced veteran players on the team or not. But I want to start building our farm system, and I think this was the way to get the money to really focus on player development and do that, given that we are a very small market team. Well, we've gone ahead and signed a few more minor league free agents just to kind of bulk up our minor league system, but we've simmed ahead to April 4th, so we're just about to get the regular season started. Definitely was interesting. We've done a ton of change to our coaching staff across the major and minor leagues, but now much happier with the ability as well as the cohesion of the coaches that we have across the system. So I think that that's going to pay big dividends for all of our players, not just at the major league level, but also in development in the minor leagues. And then we were able to bump up our scouting and development budget significantly. Obviously, it wasn't painless to trade away Santana, Greinke, and Mondesi, but I think we did what we needed to do to hopefully position these Royals to be a franchise that in the future is developing players at the minor league level who are going to contribute at the major league level in a cost-effective way, and give us a chance to eventually, hopefully a few years down the line, compete to get into the playoffs and then hopefully do some damage in the playoffs at the major league level. So would love to hear thoughts from any of you who have watched through the whole video down below. Appreciate you watching. In our next episode, we're going to be making some final cuts, figuring out what the roster looks like, and kicking off the 2022 regular season with the Kansas City Royals. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.